These are the Ural Mountains in 800 AD, a formidable boundary separating Europe from Asia.
Here, shrouded in the smoke of the sacred fire, the East Slavic tribes honored Perun, their thunder god.
Dungeons, led by Rurik, faced the treacherous Dnieper rapids. It was here, amidst the chaos, that the foundations of order were laid.
This was the dawn of the Cyrillic alphabet, a legacy forged by Cyril and Methodius, giving the Slavs their first written tongue.
Through these formidable gates passed the lifeblood of the Rus, a fusion of Norse ambition and Slavic resilience.
In the year 988, Prince Vladimir gathered his people on the banks of the Dnieper to
For the Orthodox believer, the act of painting an icon is a sacred dialogue, connecting the earthly realm with the heavenly.
This was the Golden Horde in 1237, a black mass of cavalry darkening the snow. As the wooden churches collapsed, the scale of the Mongol brutality became clear. The Prince of Vladimir humbly presents the annual dar, or tribute, symbolizing Moscow's subjugation to the Golden Horde. As the knights advanced, the thin ice of Lake Peipus began to crack under their weight.
In the 1300s, while neighboring cities fell to invaders, the small wooden fort of Moscow.
With this defiant gesture, Ivan the Great publicly renounced the Mongol suzerainty. In 1380, the disparate Russian principalities finally stood as one, forging a unified. As the 15th century drew to a close, the very fabric of the Kremlin was transformed. Red brick replaced timber. With the crown of Monomach placed upon his head, and the symbols of power in his hands,
The legend says that upon completion, Ivan the Terrible had the architects blinded, ensuring they could never again create such beauty.
Clad in the black garments of monks, the oprichniki were a terrifying sight. The dog's head attached.
with the Ural Mountains finally behind them, looked out upon the endless Siberian wilderness.
Blinded by fury, he had struck the fatal blow. The dynasty was destroyed by his own hand, leaving only this profound, terrible silence.
As the famine tightened its grip on the villages, Moscow itself languished under foreign rule.
United under the leadership of Minin and Pojarsky, this volunteer army swore a solemn oath to reclaim the capital from the invaders.
With the cap of Monomach placed upon his head, the reign of Tsar Michael officially began, ushering in 3 centuries of Romanov rule.
Soft gold that fueled the Russian economy.
Despite his royal lineage, Peter labored alongside his Dutch hosts, intensely focused on the practical skills of maritime construction.
Peter's reforms were not merely economic. He demanded a cultural shift, starting with the boyars' revered beards. The cost of Peter's grand vision was staggering. Thousands of serfs toiled in the treacherous Nessa swamp.
Peter the Great's vision was realized on this day. The Baltic Sea would now serve as the stage for Russia's emergence as a true maritime power.
Here, where the wild marshlands met the sea, rose St. Petersburg. And so the great works arrived. From the Dutch masters, the vivid strokes of Rubens and the profound... The quill scratches across the parchment, carrying Catherine's enlightened ideals directly.
The elaborate facades of the Potemkin villages masked the relentless march toward the Black Sea and the decisive defeat of the Ottoman fleet. The gold of the aristocracy was built upon the backs of men like this, men pushed to the brink by centuries of brutal subjugation.
The masquerade offered a temporary escape, a world of silk and chandeliers far removed.
At 70 years old, General Suvorov led from the front, inspiring his weary troops through the treacherous, snowbound peaks of the Alps.
The invasion had begun. This dispatch confirmed that Napoleon's Grande Armée was now crossing the frontier into Russia.
The Battle of Borodino, 1812.
A Pyrrhic victory if ever there was one. From this vantage point on Poklonaya Hill, Napoleon waited. The scorched earth tactic left Napoleon with nothing but the ashes of a burning city. The retreat was catastrophic. It was not the Tsar's army, but General Winter himself. Russia, through the strength and sacrifice of her Cossack regiments, had finally emerged as the true savior of Europe.
They called for Constantine and Constitution, yet their pleas were answered not with words.
It was here that the soul of the Russian nation truly found its voice.
I loved you.
It was here, amidst the quiet solitude of his study, that Tolstoy wrestled with the vast scope of war and peace.
It was madness. From the battery, the commanders watched as the Light Brigade rode directly into the mouth of the cannons.
On February 19, 1861, Alexander II finally put his name to the Emancipation Manifesto.
This act of calculated terror, born from years of repression, ensured the cycle of violence would continue unbroken.
With every sweeping gesture, Tchaikovsky channeled the very soul of Russia, culminating in this deafening roar of battle.
The Trans-Siberian Railway, a monumental undertaking across the unforgiving taiga, sought to finally connect the sprawling Russian Empire.
By 1900, the face of St. Petersburg was rapidly changing. A thick, bathed in the warm Crimean sun, the imperial family seemed utterly detached from the turmoil gripping their empire. As the fleet burned, it became clear that the imperial navy faced annihilation. The shock of this defeat reverberated across the globe.
Bloody Sunday, the Cossacks firing on peaceful protesters. The monks' hold over the imperial family was absolute, a stark symbol of the court's decay.
These brave young men, celebrated as heroes, were tragically unaware of the industrialized slaughter that awaited them on the Eastern Front.
With supplies failing and equipment seizing up, the soldiers faced not just the enemy, but the very elements themselves.
Freezing temperatures and lack of bread fueled a deep resentment. What began as a queue quickly escalated into...
It was here, at Finland Station, that the exiled leader proclaimed his vision. All power to the Soviets!
The decisive moment came when the cruiser Aurora fired this blank shot, signaling the assault on the Winter Palace and
Deep in the Siberian winter of 1918, Admiral Kolchak's White Army continued.
All soldiers, attention! We will bring order to this chaos. To your positions, now! Forward for the cause!
It was here, in the early hours of July 17, 1918, that the final brutal act against
The devastating cost of war and revolution was nowhere more apparent than here. The famine of 1920.
The winter of 1924 saw millions converge on Moscow. In the deep snow.
In the shadows of the Kremlin, the list was finalized. The man of steel was ready to rise.
This was the war on religion made manifest. The cathedral, once a beacon of faith, reduced to ruggle by the state.
The 5-year plan. A bold, some might say brutal, attempt to drag Russia into the industrial...
Across the rich lands of Ukraine and Russia, ancient villages were dismantled, faced with the seizure of their farms.
By 1932, Magnitogorsk stood as a stark symbol of Soviet ambition. The nation had become an industrial...
In the frozen expanse of Kolyma lay the hidden archipelago of suffering. Thousands.
I confess fully to my crimes against the state. I am a wrecker and a traitor.
The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, signed here in August 1939, represented a shocking and temporary...
At dawn on Sunday, June the 22nd, 1941, the enemy attacked without warning.
The invasion began at dawn. Total surprise allowed the attacking force to wipe out the Soviet squadrons on the ground in the critical first hours.
With the German army visible on the horizon, these women, many untrained, labored relentlessly in the frozen earth to protect the capital.
While the enemy believed they had the upper hand, Zhukov saw an opportunity. With surgical precision, he...
The arrival of the Siberian Division marked a crucial turning point. By late 1942, Stalingrad was nothing but a burning ruin.
This was the essence of the psychological war on the Eastern Front. It was a battle of nerves, fought one breath, one shot at a time.
In the ruins of the Stalingrad, the remnants of the 6th Army finally surrendered.
Deep in the Urals, these massive factories, staffed predominantly by women, managed to outproduce the German war machine.
The Battle of Kursk, 1943. Here, on the flat grass, the largest armor clash in history.
Known as Stalin's organs, the BM-13 Katyusha launchers delivered a terrifying blow to the lines.
As the troops advanced through the gates, the full, horrifying reality of the Nazis' industrialized genocide became tragically clear. With the end of the war in sight, the push towards Berlin intensified. For these men, every round was personal. Inside the ruined Reichstag, the fighting was ferocious. Every corridor and marble column became a battleground in the final push for Berlin. As the guns fell silent over the ruined city, the Soviet soldiers raised their banner.
In this moment of triumph, the symbols of the enemy were debased, but the victory was solemn.
A shadow is falling upon the scenes so lately lighted by the Allied victory. From Stettin in the Baltic.
The successful test of RDS-1 in the Kazakh steppe meant one thing: the American nuclear monopoly was broken.
Here, amidst the weeping and the solemn prayers, the country bid farewell. It was the death of Joseph Stalin.
The year 1957 marked a turning point in human history. High above us, Sputnik 1.
This SS-4 missile, seen here strapped to the deck of the Poltava, represented the greatest threat the West had ever faced.
To solve the critical housing shortage, the state turned to industrialization. Factories churned out the panels and the crane.
As the massive ICBMs rolled through Red Square, the message to the West was clear. The Soviet Union.
On Mamayev Kurgan, overlooking the Volga, stands the Motherland Calls.
The Order of Lenin, seen here being affixed, was the highest decoration bestowed by the Soviet Union. The winter of 1951 saw the queues lengthen still further. Basic goods were scarce, and
the Summit Series was more than just a game. It was a clash of ideologies. Here, the very pride of nations. The Vaz 2101, or Lada as it became known, was a symbol of Soviet ingenuity, albeit one.
Despite the outward show of elite capability, the cracks were beginning to show within the system itself. We see here the brutal efficiency of their training.
December 1979. With this step into the dust of Afghanistan, the Soviet Union began a disastrous 10-year war that would ultimately lead to their collapse. In what became known as the Soviet Vietnam, the Mi-24s ranged low over the Panjshir Valley, unleashing their rocket pods.
As the decade closed, the facade of Olympic unity masked a deepening divide. This was the... Across the frozen expanse of Siberia, a new lifeline to the West was being forged. A test...
The screen clearly indicated an incoming strike.
The gerontocracy gathered in the biting Moscow wind to bury its leader, a system seemingly trapped in amber.
These documents, Perestroika and Glasnost, represented a radical departure from the past, promising much-needed change for the Soviet people.
Above the glowing ruins of Reactor 4, the helicopters began their desperate mission, battling an invisible enemy that would linger for centuries.
This was glasnost in action, the first time in decades that ordinary citizens dared to...
The Baltic Way, a peaceful yet defiant demonstration, stretched for hundreds of miles. It was a clear...
This was the pivotal moment, the defiance that galvanized the resistance. Soldiers, I call! On the 25th of December 1991, the Soviet hammer and sickle was finally lowered.
And so, after nearly 70 years, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics ceased to exist.
In 1992, the shock therapy of capitalism truly hit the streets. Gray and grim.
The winter of 1946 forced many to make impossible choices. A lifetime of memories exchanged for a single loaf of bread.
As the opulent Mercedes 600 swept through the capital, the stark reality of the new Russia was laid bare. Men like
1996, the year the political establishment truly lost its footing, descending into a spectacle of sound bites and spin.
The world watched in horror as the tanks shelled the White House. For many, this was the moment democracy itself went up in flames.
The New Year's Eve assault on Grozny quickly devolved into a catastrophic defeat. The Russian armored columns were decimated.
Move! Get back! We have to pull back!
Overnight, the life savings of thousands simply vanished, leading to understandable desperation on the streets.
On the eve of the new millennium, stability was paramount. This new chapter, promising order.
And so, as the Kremlin clock struck 12, the final moments of the 90s faded, ushering...
In the vast, unforgiving landscape of Siberia, the oil flowed freely, driving an economic resurgence across the region. The 1990s saw the dawn of a new era for Moscow. With the arrival of Western brands, a nascent middle...
Built to reflect the might of the empire, St. George's Hall remains the symbolic heart of the Kremlin's enduring power.
The decisive victory in the Second Chechen War allowed Moscow to reassert long-sought control over the strategically vital Caucasus region.
This massive undertaking, stretching across the Baltic seabed, secured Russia's energy leverage over the European continent for decades to come.
With the golden domes shining brightly once again, the cathedral stands as a testament to the new era.
As Russian tanks rumbled through the Roki Tunnel, the scale of the impending conflict became clear.
The 2014 Winter Games torch relay was a spectacle of endurance, traversing these magnificent Caucasian slopes.
A barren hillside in Crimea in 2014, where unmarked green military vehicles sat silently. With the trucks now crossing, the bridge provides a physical link to the new territory, successfully closing the resurgence sequence.
The parade showcases the formidable T-14 Armata tanks, followed closely by the massive Yars intercomment.
As the world watched the escalating tensions, a new kind of war was already being waged. This was the dawn of the Vostochny Cosmodrome, crucial for Russia's independent access to space, represents a new and vital chapter.
Propaganda was not merely persuasive, it was the bedrock of their control. As the screens repeated, stability was achieved through structure.
The Sukhoi Formation, a potent symbol of resurgent Russian power, routinely patrolled the skies over Syria. As the tournament progressed, Nikolsovoye Street transformed into a global party, showcasing a remarkable, if brief...
This was the Donbass in the winter of 2022. A frozen landscape where the silence was heavy, with the prelude to a much larger conflict.
Traveling at 10 times the speed of sound, the Kinzhal missile is considered by many to be truly invincible.
The withdrawal of major Western brands left a significant vacuum, yet this quickly spurred a wave of imports.
And so the modern era closed much as it began, with the great fortress enduring the blizzard, steadfast against the winds of change.
By 2026, the Arctica-class icebreaker had reshaped global trade. This formidable vessel...
The Great Siberian Extraction, as it became known, was unprecedented in scale.
here.
With the climate shifting, the fertile Black Earth is yielding unprecedented harvests, cementing Russia's role as the world's leading food superpower.
The Angara program represented a new chapter in Russian spaceflight, independent of the aging Soviet infrastructure.
Within these walls lies the sovereign internet, a realm entirely isolated from the world.
Established in the late 21st century, this Siberian science city, or Naukograd, quickly became the epicenter.
Standing over 460 meters tall, the Lakhta Center pierces the clouds, dominating the skyline as a symbol of gas wealth.
Indeed, the intellectual tradition endures. As the boy makes his move, the AI calculates.
Rising above these ancient walls, we see the true scale of the Russian ambition, a vast empire spanning 11 time zones.
Stretching across 11 time zones, Russia remains an endless, complex, and beautiful horizon.